got a new recording technology, so it's going to be a little easier, hopefully. This is a meeting of the Freeport Withdrawal Committee and the RSU5 Working Group. This is a joint negotiations meeting on May 8, 2014, 6:30 p.m. Well, it's actually 6:50 p.m.
Sorry.
Freeport High School Library. From the Withdrawal Committee, we have Rich DeGrand-Pree, Peter Murray, and Kate Werner. Dennis King is not going to make it tonight. From the RSU5 Working Group, we have Kate Brown, Nelson Larkins, Naomi Ledbetter, Brian Pike, and Michelle Richardson. And also in attendance for each party is the attorneys. And we have a brief agenda, just a couple of updates from each side, and then we're going to try and work through some TAs, and then we're going to dive into some of the points on the agreement that we aren't in agreement on. Points of the agreement that we aren't yet in agreement on. So, shall I start with the update? You can have your dinner?
Go for it.
I'll try to keep going for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So
I eat fast, don't worry.
So we've been engaged in a lot of work that hopefully we'll talk about, but also most importantly, we did this visioning forum with the community. Some of you were there, and the visioning forum was a huge success in the sense that we had over 100 people come out on a Thursday night for 3 hours basically, and a lot of them stayed throughout the bitter end to talk about what the community's desires are in a high school, what their vision would be, what the passions are, and what the concerns are. So we had a structured discussion that involved a panel of folks representing kind of a local historical context, a state and federal policy context, and then a kind of boots on the ground in a school other than RSU5 context. So we had Tom Edwards there for a local context. He was a former principal of the high school, former superintendent of Portland schools as well. And we had, help me with the names now.
Was it Bud? Or?
It was Duke Albanese from Great Schools Partnership, and Duke is a former DOE commissioner under Angus King, and is currently a consultant working in school policy and so forth. And then we had the current Maine principal of the year, who is the principal of the Poland Regional High School, and whose name Kate is going to get for me in a moment. She was great, and they all presented different perspectives on kind of what are the challenges and opportunities for high schools and public schools in general going forward. It was a pretty interesting little dialogue. They were up front at first, and then we broke into table groups, and Pam Plum brought us through a kind of a guided process of group deliberation, and then each table reported out some themes and thoughts for the evening. So it was a huge turnout. It was a fantastic evening. The food was great, and Lindsay Sterling provided the food, and it was fantastic. And Carrie Med, that was it. Thank you, Carrie Med. I knew it was something med. I was going something in there, medical something. At the end, Pam took and wrote her notes up in a document, and we would love to share that with the RSU and propose to. I talked to Shannon about that. She said she'd love to see it and send it around to the current board. So we're planning to send it to Shannon, and she can send it to the current board, and we can use it for everything, because I think it was a great way to gather some sentiment and some feeling about high school vision and so forth going forward. So for whatever happens with respect to withdrawal, it'll be an interesting body of work, and also an interesting momentum, I hope, that can carry forward whatever happens. So there's also a video of it that's pretty satisfying to watch, and that's linked from our website, which is freeportwc.org. So you can click on that and check out the video if you're interested in 3 hours. Well, it's not 3 hours long, because they took out the deliberation portion and just had the beginning portion and then the summary at the end. So that's worth doing as well. Other than that, we've been working on language things and thoughts about structure and steps forward and how we might move this process forward. We're eager to bring it to closure. It's summertime. It's getting it's getting nicer and nicer, and we all want to be done. And I think for the benefit of the communities and the process, we need to bring this to a head and get it done. So that's our update.
Okay. The working group, well, I guess first I would say I appreciate, thank you for the invite to the visioning forum. I thought it was fantastic. I had a great conversation at our table and overheard some others around us. A lot of great ideas, a lot of people passionate about the schools, which is always wonderful to see because we tend to get sort of stuck in our circle of us and not really get as much input from the communities as we probably would like. So it's nice to see other people with common goals and vision for the district and the high school. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. So where we stand is we're continuing to move forward as well. We've met with council since we last met to go over some of the stuff. We talked about the items that we had agreed upon last time, tentatively agreed upon last time, handed those over to him for his review. We're preparing for a public meeting next week in Pownell on the 12th, just sort of an update to the communities on where we are, another opportunity to provide feedback and questions, answer anything we have the ability to answer at that time based on our current discussions and where we stand with the variety of towns we're talking with, potential for the high schools and the middle schools. Certainly as we get closer to the end of the year, there's some questions about next year. So because obviously regardless of the vote, we'll be together next year, but it obviously impacts decisions down the line for some families. So we're trying to provide as much information and data as we can to them to help them make their right decisions for their children. So that's kind of where we are at this point. Just getting ready for that next week. So,
have you had any further meetings with Brunswick or Greeley or any of the guys that you've been talking to?
No, really the one we were trying to get our next meeting with was Yarmouth, because we've had sort of our initial 2 meetings with both SED 51 as well as Brunswick, but we hadn't had our second meeting with Yarmouth yet, so we wanted to try and get that scheduled, but they're sort of in the process of their new superintendent, and he's trying to get up to speed on their budget, so he's a little difficult to nail down, I think, at this point. But we're continuing to work in that direction. I believe Greeley was going to go back. They were on spring break and didn't have another board meeting until this week or last week, so they were going to go back and have some more discussions with their board. And as far as Brunswick goes, I think they gave us their proposal on what they had availability to do, and at this point we haven't scheduled another meeting with them because I think we're trying to get everybody to the same point, across the board, and then move from there. So.
Okay. Any other questions and thoughts on that, or should we just dive into the work?
Let's go for it.
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right. So we took a stab at first of all, before we dive into this. Were there any gotchas or differences on the things that we TA'd that you had your attorney look at, or were all those TAs still standing?
I got them 2 days ago and haven't had a chance to look at them yet.
Okay, so they're still standing for the moment.
Yeah, so they haven't been shot down for anything.
They weren't that different than what you had sent back.
Right,
so
right.
There were only a few small wording changes, I think, and they should be all highlighted in that document we sent, so you should be able to
I'm not
track those.
anticipating any significant issues anyway.
All right. So then let's try and cover some new ground. We had not agreed on the header in the first paragraph, which is... We didn't, so I thought we'd start with that because I don't think there's much in there that we could disagree about.
Oh, because we just skipped to number 1?
We skipped to number 1.
I'm like,
yep.
Did we disagree on it?
No, we just skipped to number 1.
Is this different than
This is the same.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no changes here from what the RSU proposed
Okay.
back.
Well, I guess I don't see why we'd have an issue with what we proposed, right?
This is a proposal.
This is a proposed header and first paragraph, which is your header and first paragraph from your,
It's your language.
From this version. From March 14th. No, April
and
10th.
is everybody up on what the process is? Have you briefed him on what we've been doing with the TAs and how they kind of work? Yep,
Yes.
You're okay with that? Okay. Dan is as well. We're good to go?
Yeah, I mean,
Not much to say.
I was going to say I'm fine with that.
5, what's the date?
8.
8. That's an extra. That goes to
Hand
Kate.
him that way. Usually I give them to Shannon. She collects them.
No, blue's better for signatures. Okay.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah?
Like in the bank, they don't let you use blue ink in the branch.
Really?
Gotta use
For
black.
signatures?
Yep.
For like closing on a mortgage or something?
I don't know about that, but like in the stuff in the bank,
Interesting.
I don't know why. I prefer blue because you know it's original, but that's not true anymore either because you could
Right, color
color
copies.
copy.
So the next one is the need for school construction paragraph, and I'm going to hand out what our proposal is on that, and that's different than what you guys had last proposed. And we were confused by our last proposal and didn't think that to be quite honest, that it made sense. Remember, there was a second sentence that you had proposed to add that said this limitation, something, something, and there is no limitation that this could be referring to.
We're fine deleting it, but sentence is a sentence from the statute that requires that the agreement essentially demonstrate or provide that the withdrawal will not cause a need for state subsidized school construction. I think the statute says, I didn't read my statute book, it says either cause or create. And this is this our language, cause?
This language is our language, and then you had added a second sentence, which we are proposing to remove.
They had create. Well, they had create. You put in cause. They left in cause and took out your second paragraph.
So the second sentence was just from the statute saying that neither party needs to worry about this if the need pre-existed. So I have no problem taking it out.
Okay. In either case, it doesn't really. This is not an issue. In essence, from our standpoint, the only reason we have this whole paragraph in there is because it's one of the 11 things. We want to make sure that they can go down and check off that we did this. We are representing that this is the case.
Right. I mean, the second sentence benefits Freeport, if anything, but I have no problem with taking it out if you guys don't like it.
The second sentence. All right, fine. We're happy with it out.
We should have had Shannon sit up here.
That's not.
Everybody gets a chance to look at it.
That's right. Feel free to review as it flies by.
Your fingerprints are all on it.
That's actually the goal.
Don't try and say you didn't see it.
Right. So the next one that we had agreed in principle to, and we haven't agreed on the term, was number 7, Adult Education and Community Recreation Program. And it says, for a period of blank years after the effective date, the new Freeport SAU shall allow residents of RSU5 to participate in Freeport adult education programs and community recreation programs at the same rates provided for Freeport residents. And we had proposed 7 years after the effective date, which effectively overlaps with the grandfathering period that we've agreed in principle on.
You have an idea of where that is in here?
It's on page 16, I think, number 7.
7 of what?
Depends on
7 of what section?
Page 13 slash.
number 7
Okay.
overall.
I was gonna say 13 on the one with the edits.
Depends
See,
on
13
which
with
one
the
was
edits is not
It's on page 16 of my one with the edits.
16.
This is always why
How
it's,
much of the red you?
There it is.
You have the red line.
Yeah, that's what you're working on. Okay.
so we have it printed out here with a blank in there. I think we have the option of TAing it with the blank, and basically that we agree in principle and we'll fill in the blank later. We could put a number in there if we can agree on a number. Our proposal is 7.
And ours was 10.
I don't know that we had one from you. I think we just agreed not to TA it, and we.
So our choices is come up with a number, leave it blank, or just not TA it?
Yeah, we could leave it not TA'd. I think we agree in principle. It's just a question of how long.
Yeah. I guess I'm not prepared to agree to 7, so I'm down to leave it blank or just leave it not TA'd.
You okay with TAing it blank?
I'm fine with it.
I mean, nothing's
Nothing's permanent in this world.
right.
All right, let's TA it blank.
Will we remember to come back and fill this in since we're
I've
going
got
to
it
mark this
circled.
off as
I've got
done?
it circled. TA. Let's make a note in our TA. TA.
What's the benefit of TAing it without all of it lined up? Just
Ending
mark
number.
it off?
It's basically so that we can record and understand that we agree in principle that this is going to happen, and we just have a detail that we need to fill in, right? So it's the same concept as some of these appendixes that we have, where basically we're agreeing to the principles that we have, and then we're going to hongle about the details, later on. So I think we're agreed in principle, and I'd like to capture that agreement, but
So is there some agreement on this side that it's not permanent? Okay, so if you agreed it's not permanent, then
Put it in.
we can TA it with a blank.
right.
Yeah.
If you think it should be permanent, then you shouldn't TA it.
No, I mean, I would expect that it would tie into some sort of larger agreement. I don't think we want to permanently encumber a town forever and
Right.
always. So.
Okay. Pending number of years.
Okay. Should have just wrote a number and see if you noticed.
I'm going to circle the number of years here so it's
Oh, yeah.
clear that that's empty.
Yep, that's the blank you Spares.
There's. All right, so what's our deal here?
We just added that last sentence.
Okay, right. So this is number 15 on who knows what page.
Section, yeah.
Section 15.
This is where we might be on different sections, all right?
I think we synced back up by the time we got here.
Okay, is this transition to admin?
Transition of administration and governance.
Oh, yes.
So I think we had agreement here, except that we had added a sentence at the end that you were not comfortable working on without your attorney present. So the final sentence in our draft, and I'll pass this around here so you can take a look at it.
Right, because we hadn't seen it, your draft.
Right, so what we had proposed was this with our final sentence, and you guys wanted to consult first, so now's a good opportunity to do that.
change
Is the final addition of the final sentence, yeah.
What about things like, not necessarily the budget or tuition contracts, but hiring, and if we had to get a new principal, or, I mean, this sort of says that Freeport can be involved in those decisions as well, doesn't it? I mean, can we put language that says Freeport would not be involved in anything?
Specify the school year that they can.
Right, anything that's impacting July 1 and later, or?
Administrative contracts, teacher negotiations.
Right, teacher negotiations.
They're all gonna have to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I think the intention is not that Freeport be involved in any of that, but rather that also that Freeport be involved in the decisions that would affect the buildings and the population and the employees that will remain with the Freeport, or will come out with the Freeport district.
Right, but I think that's not included in there.
I think we're all agreed that with regard to matters involving what's called the interim period, the Freeport board members can and should be, full participants. With regard to matters that deal with the period of time afterwards, unfortunately, I'm not sure we can bind the members of the Freeport School Board who were elected, who are still members of the board of an RSU that still exists. Aside from that, there are certain decisions as to which I think the participation of the Freeport board members is necessary. For example, in calling the budget validation referendum and approving the budget, I don't think anyone in RSU5 wants there to be any question about the legitimacy of the taxes that are assessed. And if we create a truncated board for that purpose, I think that would be a very big mistake. What we've found is that it's actually difficult to get the board members of the withdrawn town, who obviously have other interests at that point, to those meetings. But I think the safest and most prudent thing to do would be to continue to have those board members, hopefully deferring to some sort of working group of Durham and Pownell members who actually help develop the budget, but have them participate in approving the budget, signing the warrants, and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't think we can change that process. It's worked fine in other school districts.
So I'll admit I'm a little confused here, because I thought that was this is your language, and we were putting in language to make sure that we were protecting.
What we're trying to do is, just to go through it, specifically, we need to be able to enter into tuition contracts, and there's no other mechanism than to say something about that here. That was the specific concern. So the new language, I guess, or the specific language to this agreement has to do with the need to be able to enter into these other possible tuition contracts. And I'm comfortable. We have truncated the board for that purpose, but I don't know any other way to do that. And hopefully the fact that it's approved by Freeport, approved by the commissioner, and what this board will probably do is immediately ratify those contracts after the effective date. But the intention has not been to speak beyond that, really. So all of this language starting...
Yep, no, I understand it. Yep.
Is really dealing with a sort of special situation of those contracts.
And I think we wanted to make sure that, for clarity's sake, that none of the language should be interpreted to curtail the rights of the Freeport board members on the RSU board for the interim period.
Right.
So that was the purpose of our sentence at the end.
So should we leave out the the reference to other than approval of the RSU budget?
Well, specifically with regard to the budget, what we've provided is that the voters of Freeport shall not participate in the budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we've added is this number 2, approval of third-party tuition contracts, and then with regard to the negotiation of those contracts, we have truncated the board for that purpose. But
Who's going to approve the budget then?
the full board.
The full board, right? So then we should strike from our sentence, other than the approval of the RSU, right?
So it just
Right.
Says other than
third party.
the approval of third-party SAU tuition contracts. We're okay with that. Are you okay with that? That
Yep.
correction?
I have just a clarifying question. When does the RSU get truncated? Is that the effective date or at the end of the fiscal year?
Right.
So up until
Right.
that date, you still have all the board.
Full
members.
board.
Right,
Yeah.
and just for everyone's benefit, the problem is the statute that talks about what these agreements will contain doesn't really address this interim period when Freeport doesn't yet exist as a school administrative unit, but has voted to withdraw, and we still have a school board, and the new, if you will, or revised RSU5 doesn't yet exist, and yet has to make all sorts of decisions. So we've tried to navigate that by putting something in this agreement under the theory that it's not in the statute, but something needs to be done, and the best thing to do is to reach agreement on it and have everybody who approves this in this process approve it. It's the closest we can come, short of a legislative amendment.
How do you feel about that edit? Good? You want to make the edit and print it too?
Thanks.
Notice John didn't sit near the printer this time. He got as far away as he could.
Andy shaved. I'm missing the beard.
I got a haircut. True.
It's spring.
It's getting a little warm.
Got it? There's a stapler underneath the teddy bear over there.
Is it really a teddy bear?
Some kind of bear thing. It's the best landmark I could find.
In the high school library, bond with the teddy bear.
Under the teddy bear.
Use it for naps.
Oh,
We're getting fast now. It's time to start on the camera, guys.
You and your chocolate.
There you go. Pass them around.
I'm just gonna smell them.
These guys do really good. Chocolate house. Yeah, don't be bashful. I still have plenty left.
All right. We got 3. We need 2. Here's a couple. Do you want to confirm? So I'm initialing and then TAing.
Would you mind reading it out loud?
The whole thing?
The whole thing?
No, just the sentence.
Oh.
added.
So the sentence that was added says, nothing in this agreement shall prevent Freeport members of the RSU board from participating in any and all board decisions between certification of the withdrawal vote and the effective date other than approval of third-party SAU tuition contracts. So it's just assumed they defer to the other
Right.
people on all the other stuff. But we specifically have to talk about that. Okay.
Right.
Not sure why they would want to, negotiate 2 sets of contracts anyway. Right?
Another question, just to clarify. The new Freeport administrative unit, if this votes to go forward, does that need to be chartered? I know we amended our charter to remove a Freeport school district a little while ago, we would have to amend it again to put one back in again. And we've talked about whether or not we should do that sooner rather than later so that we can designate a 7-member board. So if we do withdraw, we will build a 7-member board rather than default from the state, which is 3 members. So that's something we can talk about.
We can talk about that offline, yeah.
When would that occur? As soon
Now.
as soon after the withdrawal vote is.
It could be between the withdrawal vote and the effective date.
How can you do it
Right.
until
We can-
right to do it?
Yeah, we
You
can,
could do it
Or
at
you
any
can't
time.
even form it until you change
Well,
the
they could
charter.
charter, they could
Yeah,
charter
we
it,
can make a
yeah.
chart, we can change the charter to provide for it.
I mean, the existence of the
Provides for
right.
if Freeport.
Yeah,
The
It's
problem will
existence,
a
be,
little weird in the charter. that you're kind of
I'm sure that there are communities out there that have not changed their charters and there's local administrative districts still exist.
there's a problem though, which is that, you're gonna vote in November on withdrawal. And, Kelly and Shannon, when do you start working on a budget? December, and so you won't have a school board, you won't have a superintendent until you have a school board, and you can't have a school board until you have a charter amendment if you wait. So, I mean, the town attorney has to advise you, but, I mean, it must be possible to do a charter amendment.
This seems to me like a process question that we can figure out at some point, and we don't need to negotiate about this, right? We've got plenty of other stuff to negotiate about, so.
I have no opinion whatsoever
We could talk about it offline.
on your ability to charter
something
your
like
school
that.
board.
We'll figure out the chartering. This is a mechanical crank-to-crank thing. We can figure it out. So we've done the easy stuff, as far as we can tell. We also wanted to talk to you about another piece that we have agreed on in principle, which is grandfathering the
Yep.
students. And we had put some language in the agreement about grandfathering, and then the latest back from you had taken that language out.
Yep.
And we would like to propose that we agree on the grandfathering language, and then we can, if we make some decision otherwise, we can at least capture this agreement. And then if we make some decision otherwise, we can either change it or remove it or just add to it to encompass other agreements. But I think it's important for our communities to know that we're agreed on the, uncertainty on the grandfathering piece. So we have language here. We'll give it to you. You might want to,
Yeah, I probably want to take a minute.
take a minute. I'll give you both copies. We only have 2 copies. You can pass them around. This is essentially, this is the same language, right? Unchanged from the previous time that we sent that over to you.
Peter, would you like to just describe it?
Yes, so this is
Most people don't
essentially
have
the, so for the first year after the effective date, we are required by law to essentially provide an agreement that allows any student to go to wherever school they may have gone to while the RSU was still together. So that's the first year. And then we have a certain population of students from RSU5 in the withdrawn Freeport schools. And our intention is that we would agree to grandfather those students throughout their high school career. So the middle schoolers from Pownell who are in the Freeport Middle School that year after withdrawal would be tuition. We would agree to tuition those kids in all the way through high school, and the Pownell and Durham kids that are in Freeport High School that year after withdrawal, we would tuition those students in for the remainder of their high school career, should they so choose.
So it would apply to the students who were in the Freeport schools during that first year?
During the first year after withdrawal, right?
Okay, not their siblings?
That's correct.
So this, she knows because if a family moves into Durham and Powell for the high school kid, it doesn't relate to the two or even two, just a junior or senior year. So
if they moved in during the year, during the first year, then their kid
You
would
have to have a seat-
attend, yeah.
seat in the school.
They would have a seat in the school if they moved in during the first year, but that year after, yeah, that's right, the second year after withdrawal, if they moved in, they would go to the, whatever the other arrangements were, which may or may not, which we were talking about, right? They wouldn't be covered under grandfathering, is all.
Right. I guess I'd like to take this one aside if we can.
Yep. Okay. We'll go in the other room. I'm gonna do this muting thing here.
We may wanna find a room down the
Yeah.
hallway
All right, we are back live.
Okay. So, brief break, less about the specific language and more about the theory behind behind this clause. And I think from our perspective, we should be negotiating the primary issue, which is the top of this, which is the kids in the school of record. This is really a contingency if we don't come to an agreement on that. So I feel like we're better served going there and discussing that piece of it, because this, our goal is that this piece here is moot. We think our kids are best served and our families are best served with Freeport being the school of record. And we appreciate the gesture on the grandfathering for the 7 years, but I think we need to go farther than that. So.
Okay. Good. So we thought we would, put that out there as a way to capture some point of agreement, because that was one of our early points. So I guess we'll move on to our final bullet point on the agenda, which is
stuff we don't agree
other
on.
Stuff.
The hard stuff. Does anybody want any more candy?
Yeah, right. Start throwing it around.
So I guess how to get started on this, right? Obviously, the issue is what are the enrollment commitments between new Freeport SAU and RSU5 beyond the grandfathering, which we've agreed in principle is about the baseline.
Right.
And we've been pretty clear from the beginning that our position is that we don't have the capacity to. So let's stop for a second and let me ask you a question. What does school of record mean? Because it's not a term that the DOE knows about. It's not a term that I know about. I know about it in a different context, which is that the school of record for an individual pupil is the school in which the pupil is enrolled. But I don't know about it with respect to this dialogue. So let's start by defining the term.
I guess I would say I don't think it's a term that the DOE doesn't know about. I would say it's not a term in the statute. Is that correct?
I think Commissioner Ryer is the one who coined the phrase school of record.
Okay.
To describe the DOE's requirement that in the context of a withdrawal, there be an assurance that every child has a home somewhere.
Yeah. Right. So that's my understanding, is that the requirement be that there's a 10-year commitment from some district or some districts that makes sure that at any time every kid can show up on August 31st and get into a building.
That's not quite right.
No?
That there be a 10-year contract or an agreement.
Yeah.
Not just a third-party school willing to take kids that's not acceptable to the school administrative unit that is looking for the school of record.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So an outside community might make a commitment, might write a letter saying we're willing to take your kids for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's an agreement with the sending school has to, that has to be a receiving school that's acceptable to the sending school unit.
Right.
To be that school of record. So it's not just a commitment. It's not just procuring a letter from a school district somewhere that's willing to take the kids. It's got to be, in other words, RSU5 needs to make the best provision that it can for its middle school and high school students.
Yeah.
It believes that Freeport historically has been the primary school. We believe that the parties all agreed to join together in an RSU, and the best way to provide continuity for its children is for the school of record to be Freeport. There might be some third-party school willing to be a school of record, but unless that's acceptable to RSU5, we don't regard that as a school of record.
So Do you have other school districts that are expressing availability to be the 10-year commitment school?
Nobody has said that they are willing to be the school of record for RSU5. And the thing is it can't, I mean, it could be more than one school, but one of them has to say, and the rest. You can't say 50, 50, 50, 50, okay, we have 200 kids. There has to be a, and the rest somewhere. You know, and the rest has to essentially be able to take everyone. The only one that we've spoken with that has the capacity from a numbers of seats perspective to do that is Brunswick, and they have not, he definitively said at our meeting he was not prepared at that point to be the school of record. That's what, am I correct in that?
They have seats for everyone.
Right, but the school of
RSU5
record
wanted,
question.
Yeah, Freeport to be the school of record.
That's a
So
different-
you're saying something different than what I just heard Michelle
Well, I
say.
don't have my Brunswick notes, that's why I was.
You know, because I asked the question. I said, you know, because I'm trying to look at all angles and try and figure out what, you know, what our potential options are, and, you know, our stance is that Freeport needs to be the school of record. You know,
That's where it gets kind of strange, because Bangor could write a letter and say, we're willing to be the school of record and take all your kids. Can that really handcuff RSU5 that they have to send their kids there because they have the option to do that? I mean, that's what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just asking the question, has anybody
but
expressed an
that's-
interest? That's all I'm doing.
But that's the concept where I think it's just semantics. It doesn't matter whether, it may or may not, I mean, if Brunswick has enough seats, or if they're the school record, it doesn't matter unless the RSU5 folks want them. I don't know that it makes any difference in the negotiations here. I mean, the fact that Freeport, rightfully so, could lean and say, well, you do have an option other than us. I just don't know that you.
So, I mean, I guess.
I just don't know that whether that's anything more than a leverage point. It's not illegal.
It's
not illegal.
well,
So Brunswick's got the seats.
but I think you have to have more than the seats to be the school of record, right? I mean, they have to be willing to. I think there's more involved in it than just saying we have seats for your kids to sit in. I think, you know, they have to be willing to say we will take, you know, if there's kids that I don't know that other districts don't want, they have to be.
They have to step up because that's always the concern.
Right, and
because the school record may get the kids that nobody else necessarily wants for one reason or another, right? And that's one of the it's not just do we have capacity. It's also you're the fallback position because the kid that might get booted out of a school where they got just the option to go would then fall back, or special needs. There's a lot of factors there that can make it dicey for everybody.
To be clear, the school of record doesn't have to be an exclusive school, and I think everyone has contemplated that there would be choice. The realities seem to me to be such that it's highly unlikely that there's going to be a capacity problem by virtue of Freeport being a school of record, given that there would be some parents sending their kids to other schools. We now have a charter school issue, and so I just don't see it as a. I don't think people should be concerned about it in light of those realities. There will be some kids that want to go to one school, some that want to go to another.
It's so hard to predict 10 years out, and what we found after 3 or 4 years was that the school was at capacity.
Right.
And so
But we have a capacity issue
now
here,
it's
right?
not.
I mean,
that's why it's so hard to predict.
Hey, Nelson, excuse me for a second. We have a capacity issue here, right? We know we're dealing with a capacity issue as an RSU, and so it's we have a hard time imagining a future in which we can offer a backstop with that capacity issue, right? I mean, I understand that practically it may or may not be the case that we run into that capacity with whatever subset of children that decide to come, but it is nonetheless the case that we have a capacity and we are not able to offer everybody everybody in RSU5 a seat. And so that's I think the nub for us. And there's really only one geographically proximate district that has the capacity,
Other than here.
period. We don't have the capacity.
So instead of saying we don't have capacity, we can't do it, why don't we discuss what's the way around that? What's
Let's talk about it. I mean, so part of what's the way around that is what is the nature of the options from Brunswick, right? I mean, we need.
No. I'm talking Freeport. I want to talk Freeport capacity.
I just said, what is your capacity, Peter?
The physical building capacity is 500.
My understanding was 550, or is that just?
No.
No, we had 550
Right.
last year. We just 500 is
540 to 550, I think.
And the current enrollment is?
520.
487.
Oh, is it lower now? Okay. Was 520 at the beginning of the year?
Charter schools
Mhm,
and
I understand,
superintendent's
yeah.
agreements.
510 is what the April one number is.
Oh, went
High
up from
school,
the
that's our current.
For
December.
next year, they're projected to be 482.
Right.
Right.
He asked current.
But as far as current,
Oh yeah, kids in the school. Yeah.
current enrollment,
Okay, but what about the capacity of Freeport High School then? I mean, if the concern is that so many Pownell and Durham kids are going to come that it would require additional space, then is there a way to work it in that if the kids increased above a certain number, we would be willing to participate in the cost?
So I think so stepping back from this for a second, I think that first of all, I talked to Paula Graval at the DOE for a while about this, and she said, I don't know why you're talking about a tuition contract. I don't know why you're talking about it. It doesn't need to be in the withdrawal agreement. And I said, I don't know that I agree with you about that. But that was kind of startling to me.
Tuition contract between RSU
Between RSU5
Freeport?
and Freeport, yeah. She said that should be dealt with in a separate arrangement on the side. That's not part of the withdrawal agreement. And so I was startled at that. But I think that we all are committed to this idea that we need to solve. We have a problem that we need to solve, right? And the problem is that we need to find this long-term trajectory for our three towns, or RSU and Freeport, to build some policy and build an agreement and build some structure around that makes sense in a scope that's 10 years out, and indeed maybe longer probably, and hopefully longer. And I think it's very hard for me to sit here and tell what's going to happen. The whole RSU is only 5 years old, right? And we're talking about trying to do something that's twice as long as the age of the whole RSU.
And we have to do that, unfortunately.
Understand that. So we need to do the thing that makes the most sense from a holistic standpoint, and we are willing to lean into that with you, but we're not. Don't have the capacity to be able to offer this kind of elastic, will take everybody kind of facility, and so. Can I ask a different kind of question? If, thinking outside the box for a moment, RSU5 did do a 10-year arrangement with Brunswick, and we had as many kids in the Freeport High School as we could operate with from the RSU and from the district, from the Freeport town. Why is that not an interesting thing to look at?
I don't understand the distinction.
Well, there you go.
No, I mean, I'm saying, so we could have all the kids here anyway, but you don't want to be...
You could have all the kids that would fit, all the kids that we had capacity for. And the only difference is that Brunswick would be providing this kind of checkbox that says, when in doubt, we will be able to take your kid, and you would then otherwise have full choice. Is that a bad outcome somehow?
Well, other than they have not said they do it.
How would you determine number of seats yearly?
The school board would determine it. The Freeport School Board would determine it. Well, it creates, well, it may or may not create the concept of lottery. It shouldn't. It only creates the concept of a lottery if you're in the case where it would create the concept of overcrowding, right? Right? If there's a concept of a lottery, then it's a concept of overcrowding. So it's the same problem, right? If we're talking about that the Freeport capacity is oversubscribed, then we're either overcrowded or we're doing a lottery. So which is better for the kids, right? I mean, that's the lens I'd like to look at it with.
I mean, but I guess I go back to Brunswick has not said they're willing to do it. So, I mean, I asked the question, what if, if there was nothing else we could do and Peter won't budge at all, would you? I know.
Let's not personalize
No,
this,
I'm
all right?
teasing. But is it something that you would consider? And he said, I'm not prepared to be the school of record at this point. Maybe it's because I took him by surprise. I don't know. But, I think.
Well, what about this idea? What about we all three sit down, all three parties? We invite the Brunswick School Board and we meet with them and you meet with them and we try and solve the problem together.
But we also have a community that is pretty remote from Brunswick, and I'm not sure they're on board with.
We don't want we don't want it with Brunswick.
Yeah.
If I could just
But
clarify
maybe there's
your
a solution
proposal.
to that, right? I mean, if we can figure out a way to get to the point where we're not kind of posturing and stuff, and we're talking about solving the problem, there might be a solution to that problem.
I guess I don't see the capacity issue when there's choice. And if it did happen that every single kid wanted to come to Freeport and it created overcrowding, if we were willing to help offset some of that, that's obviously it's our incentive to make sure there's enough seats elsewhere for our kids. Right, because it costs more to come here if we cause overcrowding that creates a debt service factor, for instance, for expansion. That's our incentive to make sure they have seats otherwise and not put you in an overcrowded position, right? I mean, that's how I sort of
How is that
envision it in my
substantively
head.
different than Nelson's lottery concern?
I think there's going to be a lottery, frankly.
I don't know what the difference is really than the situation I just described, where Brunswick is the one that checks the box, and then
because Brunswick
sit
isn't the
down.
one withdrawing. You guys are put this in the position where we have to come up with a 10-year contract. Today there's the capacity. We're willing to figure out a way to make sure that capacity doesn't become an onus on you. And then you guys provide the school of record.
I'm not sure if I should speak or not. I have a question. Then, would we consider being your school of record or your backstop, whatever it is, at a tuition rate that's actual cost?
Isn't that what's in here?
No.
No, we're talking about tuition rates, state tuition rates, with our actual cost. That's a whole lot bigger number.
So let's before we go too far down any roads, let's have a little caucus on this stuff.
Peter, if I just could
Yes, sir.
understand your proposal, is it that the parties agree on a capacity for the school, define the capacity of the school, and agree that the seats not used by Freeport resident students would be first available to RSU5?
That's not my proposal. But it's not that's different than backstopping.
Okay, so, but if that's not your proposal, you could fill the school with kids from other towns and then tell us that you only have room for 10 or 5?
Yeah, but if you want to talk about being practical, what other towns, would we fill them with?
to let them know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you give that, I mean, while we think about what you said, maybe you could think about what we said.
Okay. Let's caucus. So who's leaving?
You guys want the back room?
You guys
We can
take
find
the back
another
room.
spot.
We'll go find some
Okay.
other.
We're a larger group
We'll go sit in
today.
the corner. Yeah.
Careful with the can. I don't think it's gonna take that long.
I can. I don't. Well, that actually, that's not at all. It's only done apply on the whole side. The problem is how some okay. A lot of them some they'll have a school of records that and a lot like Freeport. I mean, especially with the ones that have really don't want to do them. Hey, you know, they really just consensus.
So this historical, they were
Especially high school.
the kids wanted to be here.
Right. High school. That's not the community. So, you know, again, it's very like, well, we each have very high, you know, I mean, there are core constituencies, as there is in Freeport, which is not as big. Very conservative folks that don't want to spend a lot of money on their stay and they're in school. Then there are a lot of folks as well, and they're very interested in schools. But they have their motivation about work. So forth, and that history there. Or they just think, well, really important, it's bad enough right now, let's move on. So they would probably just be able to find it for us. And then stay with that. Say, okay, how is it about what you're going to do with those three? And that would put and not necessarily I may have one point suggested but they had a new superintendent coming in. She doesn't work because it's not two great board members. So they're all in the same group. And they have this one class, which is like 7th or 8th grade right now, which in normal class, I think was that's why they're having what they're looking at. So they want to engage, you know, kind of like the ones who can only get some whoever shows up and what, we're going to get some kind of sense. But the sense is how, well, who's going to do it? Who's going to get it? You guys got to think
timing of that would be difficult.
See, see what I'm saying? And we're good.
They don't have that, all from town. That, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. They might not keep them home, they have them evaluated by the town where you live.
Is there any true up for all these costs?
They're gonna bump up.
Costings.
They should be.
Supposing special ed
Got a lot more though in preschool.
Yeah.
this year,
Yeah.
so next year, they
Because there's not room for enough in the preschool.
Multiple contracts?
Yes. But that's where they want safety net and then let the natural flow take care of it. It's a self-lottery.
They do have some
One quarter reimbursement.
What if the safety net were a Freeport for pound and Brunswick for Durham? If they want a safety net, I mean, with these guys,
That sounds really good.
Let's
I just
go
don't
back
know
to
what
the
dynamic is, because there are enough piece of really step up. And Freeport has a step up over.
does Greeley have specific
They don't.
for across the entire RSU5?
They said 5 per grade.
But seeing Greeley as a step up wouldn't necessarily be relevant. Freeport was the school for Palm.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I was just saying.
No. Yeah, I mean, there's that element of that, and I don't know how that plays out in the dynamics, because the reality is at that point, why I have to they have an RSU5.
Well, but it still, it might be a way of dealing with it.
I mean, I heard that loud and
I
clear.
don't know what the concerns are. No. We're not.
I mean, Freeport with the I mean, looking at it for 50,000,
Right,
that's
that's
absolutely
not
looks like.
Right.
There's a lot, I mean, that didn't happen overnight.
Right.
The pre-consolidation model was an evolution over decades.
Negative would be small community. Your kids would talk to the wind, you provide and town station. These are cards for them to put your kids back in.
Going to Durham.
Well, no, that was a
They were going.
That was a K-8 school.
In Powell, but prior to consolidation.
Yeah, for the first 2 years. This is the third year. They actually had the option to go to Durham Community School.
Oh, it's gonna have some dates in.
But then there was some capacity issues with that, and they all kind of stayed.
What is the capacity of that school?
It's tight.
Is there not, is it?
Because the state won't pay the bills, and they're paying those tickets.
Yeah. So it's 10% more than your projected capacity.
Yeah. So it's basically set up to handle 2 classrooms per grade, and they've got some bubble years where they've got 45 to 50 kids. So
Just like 2.5 classes or?
Yeah, they can do it. So, I mean, if push came to shove.
Classrooms over at Mass Landing now.
Right, so if push came to shove, they could, long term, the energy was biggest, they had dollars, you could convert, because they do have some additional classroom space that they use for, because there's not really, I don't know what you do, but the difficulty in part 2 is because they really got that separated as, it's 3 schools within 1 school, because there's the elementary, it's the bottom level, the main part of the building, and then upstairs of that, I think it's middle school, and then there's a wing that has like the intermediate school. And if had some room open up, you might have to think about arrangement for the graders. Yep. They even have the wing is the middle school, because they even have a separate entrance, so if the middle school kids can go in and feel like they're going into middle school.
So they really try to make it 3 separate schools, even though it's one physical building.
Yeah, it's pretty creative.
Yeah.
That way. And then they have like their own separate common area in each of those areas, so they can gather.
Hey, you walk into that school and it feels expansive.
It's nice. Yeah, the hallways are so wide.
Yeah.
And they did such a great job, because just with the color scheme, because it's all a cement block. It's kind of earth tone. But I mean, that's one of those things. If the population blows up like it could, people are moving there quite a bit. They could have issues with that.
That should affect this.
Well, that was what we were projecting. When we were given those projections, the high school would have 650. It was mostly the growth was mostly around the town.
Her response on the question
That doesn't put my blood pressure down. Think about being a school of record, the growth is going to come.
Yeah, right.
That's the, as a free.
But that was the projection, and then all these, a lot of other factors came in, charter school, especially.
And the drop off, actually, at least nationally, new.
Yeah. I mean, the economy, I'm trying to figure out the economy.
But really, how many kids from all those 3 towns go to the charter school?
We got 24 signed up for master for next year.
24?
We've got a couple in Hartsville. I think we've got one up in Gray. And that doesn't count the Cheverus, NYA, Wayne School.
Oh, there are other charter schools, you say?
Well, no, private.
Oh,
Yeah, Hartsville. Yeah, Hartsville has a charter. See, all the charter schools that are centered for the most part around, so they don't get more capacity. And we've got up at Goodwill Hinckley, that's a charter.
What will happen, though, I'm trying to look at this, if we exceed capacity here, over 500, I'm going to say 530, because that's when it gets really rough. When that happens, how many more kids will want to go to the charter schools and will take with them the funding that they have?
Well,
because and at that point, when we start sending, instead of 27, we start sending 60 kids there, it's not going to be the kids that, it's going to be the kids that that are the spark.
That's my big concern, just with public education.
That's the problem with charter schools.
That's the problem with charter schools, and especially with it's structured where the funding follows them just from the local district.
Right.
So, but if we don't find a solution, that's what's going to happen.
That's why I say we have to, whatever it ends up being, whether it's Freeport standalone or RSU5, we got to make this high school as sexy as possible.
Right.
I mean, it's a competitive market now.
It is a
Now, and the other part that we're losing out big time is superintendent's agreements. Traditionally, a superintendent's agreement, a kid can only go to Yarmouth if the 2 superintendents agreed, and they didn't. There was like a general person's agreement that we're not going to pay for each other's kids. And the Page administration wants school choice. And so they've made it clear that they will override all those. So it's open game right now. So we've lost several kids to Yarmouth, and Pownell already has 5 families of middle schoolers that some letters of agreement to agree to anticipating wrongly, but that's where, not necessarily wrongly, but potentially wrongly. Anticipating the best out of this process, that's where really kids go. But Yarmouth stopped it. They basically, about a month ago, said, we're at capacity. We don't care if you want to come here, we're not taking you.
So is Yarmouth losing kids to the charter schools?
Well, there's kids that go, that makes sense.
Yeah. Portland and Freeport, there's part, I mean, my opinion, Freeport taking very twofold. One, our former math teacher and STEM teacher that are 2 of the driving forces. Yep. And 2, because of the situation we're in, my son So are just not waiting around. Well, and 3, it's just a good, it works for some people. It is a great option.
Our test scores going down, so it'd be concerning.
Test scores, I don't know.
Test scores, if you want to increase test scores, it's not the top kids you want to know, it's the ones at the bottom. If you give them your people at the bottom are better, your test scores go up, because they have the greatest impact on where you work with the kids at the bottom, get them up.
Yeah.
You know, the kids at the top are already there.
Well, we lost kids at the top though too. We have fewer kids in the top bracket.
I'm not sure about fewer kids.
Well, again, you know, there's, I mean, that's where we live in this value.
Well, it's a competitive market, but you know, it kind of always has been. When I went through the school system in the 80s, there were 25 kids in my school class, and when I got to 10th grade, there were 2. The others went to NYA or Shepherds.
Well, I can remember my boys, my 2 oldest, played for the Bronx, and Wayne Fleet's starting line was all from Freeport. You know, everyone except
well, that's the other factor that we have to keep in mind, the numbers too, because half our football team this year was down. We don't field the football team unless we're doing so if we've got a kid who's really interested in football, they're going to go to Shepard.
Well, but I know that.
But we already lose the hockey kids.
Well, but we have hockey next year.
And then we've had hockey before.
I know, this one's a little bit closer than OOB.
And then it goes.
This is a little closer than OOB. Yeah, you try, but that's always true. That's.
But I mean, it's cool, yeah.
I mean, it's the critical mass, and that, I mean, you've heard me do a great job. I don't care. I don't care if we're standalone 3 for RSU5, as long as we can give our kids everything that we can, and we don't just like it. So we can field teams, we can field all the extracurriculars and stuff, and we can pay for it.
I'm a believer less is more.
Well,
so, you know,
to a certain
do we need a football team? Well,
Yeah, we do, because we have an awesome soccer team if we shifted those athletes over. I mean, that's
I like to give the kids the choices that they want to make.
well, but if you want them to choose quality, so I mean, I'd rather have less and do it well than have more and do it.
Before we were in the RSU, you know, and again, I have 4 sons. My youngest son graduated from here, and he went to Orono, with Laura, Nick, Kyle, and Wade. 5 people from that class that went to Orono. When Wade graduated as an engineer, he was the top student in his department. When Kyle graduated as an engineer, he was the top student in his department. Moira graduated cum laude. My son graduated summa cum laude in their departments. And Nick was the only one who took 5 years, and that's because he needed money, so he was offered a internship with Sappy Paper. A year and worked with him, and then when he went back, he graduated off of his class in chemical engineering. So it's 5 kids, all at Orono, all from here, all of them. Before the RSU came, before there were an immense amount of numbers, and all of them did extremely well.
That's really interesting.
But it always,
They were all well
but if you look out on the board, there's kids this year that are going to Princeton, MIT, Bowdoin, Colby.
I would say it's not numbers.
Right. No, and that's exactly my point. It's just how you deliver your services there. Now, there is a point where it's too small. That's what people comment on about the middle school. You're going back 15 kids in grade.
Nelson's lecturing, folks.
No.
Oh my God, we left that thing going all the time.
Oh no. Well, hello
Luckily,
there.
we were in the other
Right,
side.
exactly.
Hopefully, they didn't hear me cussing and swearing.
We all race home to listen to the video. That's true.
Yeah, Nelson was probably on there.
Under 400.
We got it all figured out.
Oh, okay, great. We'll leave. You guys can solve.
Work it out. Okay.
Hi there.
How are you?
Great. So where did we end up?
I thought you guys wanted to go think.
I thought you guys wanted to go think. That was what your guy said.
No, you said we needed to think. We needed to discuss.
So the summary of what we talked about is that that we're comfortable thinking about something around a structure of something like, and we've talked about this in the past, the idea that there's some kind of number of seats that we're comfortable saying we can, I don't know whether it's give you first dibs on or whatever, however we want to talk about that. And it's something along the lines of some number of seats per grade level. And maybe something that kind of structure could be added in. If we'd also like to talk about a mutual commitment on that, so that if we're guaranteeing something, that there's some kind of understanding the other way as well. I don't know how that works yet, but it's not uncommon. It seems reasonable. Could be a transportation type guarantee. It could be something else. And that's a kind of a structure that we might be able to explore together. But it doesn't, and that you could add to your library of available options.
Unfortunately, that doesn't get us the requirement for the state, for the record, the school of record.
Right. So we're pretty firm on that.
As are we. So.
So hence we're going to be in trouble.
I think we might. I guess my thought is, if the concern is capacity, and that's what I'm hearing, right? And we're willing to provide a compromise to help alleviate that concern should it come to fruition, while we expect it wouldn't, given the pool of available options we're going to provide to the kids, right? We're going to have, hopefully the goal is to have seats at Greeley and Yarmouth and Brunswick and Freeport at a minimum. So we don't expect it's going to be an issue. If it does become an issue, then, we help as part of the solution to that problem. So we try to mitigate that risk for Freeport.
So help me understand, what's the objection with Brunswick checking the box and then us working together to make it as fruitful as we can between us? What's the problem with that? I don't understand why that's a problem.
Well, because remaining RSU5, our choice for the school of record is Freeport. We feel like that's the best school to be the school of record for our kids. I mean, Brunswick is not a party to these negotiations. I'm not quite sure how to include them in it. So they're not. So we're trying to come up with this process and, with this plan, and the school of record in our mind needs to be Freeport.
Well, it's going to be, this is, obviously our position is that the school of record, we can't in good faith offer the school of record because we just don't have room.
So why does the compromise not mitigate that for you?
Because the compromise essentially puts the new Freeport SAU in a position where, based on decisions that are beyond its scope, it will be forced to expand the high school.
I think it's overstating to say it will be forced to expand the high school. I think it's a small probability that it's going to come to fruition that every Freeport and Durham kid came here, or
that it'll
Pownell
be
and Durham kid.
Overcrowded, or that it'll be oversubscribed. And essentially, it's not. It's binding 10 years into the future school boards and future school populations to absorb an essentially and a potentially unbounded responsibility, and whatever calculation we come up with for some kind of compensation is wrong in some substantive way, right? We can't figure out exactly what will be going on 8 years from now or whatever. And it puts the SAU in a position where it basically has to absorb events that are beyond its control and beyond its purview with folks that are not that are paying according to some agreement that we come up with around the table, tonight, kind of thing. So.
But, I mean, that's a result of the withdrawal. I mean,
So
to say that
your
it's.
position is that that's our cost of withdrawal, and I find that a little unreasonable when I think that there's another district around the corner that is willing to check the box, and then we can talk creatively about how to solve whatever other problems there are with respect to making sure that people are happy with the outcome.
But I think to say that essentially Freeport gets to dictate who our school of record is, which is what you're trying to do.
No, I'm just saying that we don't feel that we're in a position. So I've tried to be very sensitive about this because I understand it's not our responsibility to figure out the school of record, but we want to be cooperative, we want to engage, and we want to help solve the problem in whatever way we can. What we can't do is sign up to be the school of record or be the 10-year commitment school. I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. And that's we're willing to engage. It seems like there's lots of resources around. Let's
and
work
we
together
plan to
right?
access them. It's not that it's not like we're excluding other schools. We're not talking to the other schools in a hope that you become the school of record and we ship every kid back here. We have to have this 10-year. I mean, I understand trying to figure things out 10 years down the road is hard,
Right.
But unfortunately, we are forced to do that today because of the vote. So
Right.
that
And
then becomes a shared responsibility.
I'm saying that I think that if it's a shared responsibility, that then it's
You can't
not,
share it
it's
with
not-
somebody else. It's
but
shared
it's
with
not,
you.
It's not an inappropriate thing if it's a shared responsibility between you and us to help solve this problem. Then it's not inappropriate for us to talk about the other options together. So. I want to be respectful that this is not technically our responsibility, but on the other hand, if you're saying it is, then let's talk about it. And
Well, I'm saying it is because this agreement has to be an agreement, and with us not having a school of record, we don't agree.
I understand that, and believe me, that's what I told Paula when she said it's not your deal, and I said, but it is our deal, and because first of all and foremost, because we want to make sure that the kids are all taken care of in a great way. And second of all, because we won't get agreement. And she said, well, you can ask her what she said. I won't speak for her. So, what did you guys talk about?
Essentially the same discussion we just had. Yeah.
Just to chime, they're having another community meeting on Monday night. And just viewing from the outside a little bit, you're obviously at a pretty tough point and certainly can keep talking about it. But there is that element of them talking to their community members and getting a sense, because some of the basic concepts that they were working under have changed since the last time they had any kind of community get together. That the additional meetings with Brunswick and Greeley and also Narberth and so forth. So I'm not suggesting whether it would change people's feelings or ideas, but it might give them more of an idea what their community thinks as well. That's not till Monday. I know trying to
You can't do that right now.
Just get out your phones, start calling people.
So are you suggesting we suspend for the evening and
I don't
see if the more light comes in the 2-week period? We don't have a whole lot of progress, right? Based on that.
Well, this is such a domino thing.
Everything else
You get
relies
this thing
on it.
out of the way,
And we're done.
you're off and running,
Mhm.
and you got to get this thing done before the middle of June. and I don't see any reason why you don't. I'm just not sure how much you're gonna get done now.
I just want to share, I mean, Powell, Durham, and Freeport got together at Mallett Hall last week, though, Tuesday. It was an interesting meeting. We talked about all kinds of things, how we could work together, municipally. But at the end of the day, we ended up talking about, the withdrawal and the school and the budget and a bunch of other things. And one of the things that I said there, and I've said out loud, I'll even tell Larry if he's here. I think
He will be. He's going to listen to the recording. So.
I was going to say it's conspicuous.
No, what I said was, I think it's important that all of us from all three communities, check in with our communities to make sure that we're all going the right direction for our respective communities. And I'm not trying to insinuate that you guys should be doing something different than you are, but each community has different needs, different thoughts, and different ideas, and we could hear that just in the meeting that we had. So I mean, I think you're probably right, Nelson. It's a good chance to check in with your communities and make sure that everybody's headed the same direction, that their communities really think they should be going. And I'm going to continue to do that too. I see different folks all over, but you're probably right, Nelson. We could sit here and look at each other for a while and eat candy, but I don't know if we're going to get much farther tonight.
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable to me.
All right, well.
So we are set for the 21st?
We are set for the 21st for more fun and games.
That's correct.
And we did some good work tonight, got some things done, so let's not forget about that.
That's right.
We got more work to do, but we'll get there.
Yep.
All right, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.